Imagine this: Florence, Italy. A young man, Guccio Gucci, stands outside a grand hotel, his eyes fixed on the opulent luggage of the wealthy elite. He's not just looking, he's studying. He sees the fine leather, the impeccable stitching, the sheer status carried in their hands. In that moment, a dream is born to create something truly timeless. What started as a humble leather goods shop in 1921 was destined for greatness. Gucci would become a name synonymous with power, luxury, and desire, but this isn't just a story of success. It's a gripping saga of family feuds, shocking betrayal, and extraordinary reinvention. A dynasty nearly destroyed by greed, only to be saved by brilliant visionaries and reborn through fearless creativity. From Florence's cobbled streets to Hollywood's red carpets, from iconic horsebit loafers to revolutionary runway shows, this is the story of how Gucci didn't just change fashion, it shaped culture itself. You're watching Brand World 360, and this is the untold story of how Gucci built a global empire. The origins of Gucci, Florence, 1921. In the heart of Florence, where art and architecture breathe history into every street, a young dreamer named Guccio Gucci was quietly observing the world around him. Born in 1881 to a humble family of leather craftsmen, Guccio was surrounded by the legacy of Italian artistry, precision, passion, and pride in every stitch. But Florence in the early 1900s was a place divided. The world was changing. Industrialization had begun to reshape Italy, but true luxury was still reserved for the elite, for the travelers, the nobles, the ones who could afford beauty. Guccio, like many of his generation, wanted more than survival. He wanted immortality through craftsmanship. As a young man, he left Florence and found work as a porter at London's Savoy Hotel, a place that symbolized the very essence of elegance. There, he handled the finest luggage from brands like Louis Vuitton and H.J. Cave & Sons. He watched wealthy travelers glide through the lobby, their movements, their confidence, their possessions. He studied not just their bags, but their attitude. Every night, Guccio dreamed of bringing that same sophistication back home, blending Italian craftsmanship with the aura of international luxury. And so, after years of quiet observation, he returned to Florence in 1921 with a modest vision and even more modest resources. He opened his first shop on Via della Vigna Nuova. The store sold fine leather goods, saddles, luggage, and accessories for the Italian elite. But it wasn't just about the products. It was about philosophy. Guccio believed that every piece should carry a soul. That quality was not just a feature, but a promise. His motto was simple: quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. Soon, word began to spread. His craftsmanship caught the attention of Florence's upper class, aristocrats, horsemen, and travelers. Guccio's designs, inspired by equestrian life, featured elements like stirrups and horse bits, symbols that would later define the Gucci aesthetic. The early years were filled with challenges. Italy's economy was struggling and luxury seemed like a distant dream. But Guccio's vision was unshakable. Even when materials were scarce, he adapted, using hemp, jute, and bamboo instead of traditional leather. Out of necessity, he discovered innovation, and that innovation would become identity. In the 1930s, during the trade restrictions of Mussolini's regime, Gucci created one of his most iconic designs, the bamboo-handled bag. Using heat to bend bamboo imported from Japan, his artisans crafted a handle unlike anything else in the fashion world. It was elegant, exotic, and timeless, a perfect metaphor for the Gucci spirit, transforming limitation into luxury. By the late 1930s, the Gucci name had begun to travel. The brand's logo, two interlocking GS, symbolized not just Guccio's initials, but a new definition of prestige. It wasn't just about owning a product. It was about belonging to a class of dreamers who valued artistry over abundance. Florence had given birth to many artists: Michelangelo, Botticelli, and Da Vinci. Now in the 20th century, it had given the world Guccio Gucci, a craftsman turned legend. He didn't live to see how vast his dream would grow, but he planted the seed of what would become a global symbol of elegance and power. From that small shop in Florence, a dynasty was born, a family name that would echo across continents for its brilliance, its beauty, and its battles. This was the beginning of the House of Gucci. The rise of the Gucci family dynasty. When Guccio Gucci passed away in 1953, he left behind more than a business. He left behind a legacy, a vision crafted from leather, loyalty, and pride. But as history would soon reveal, legacies are not inherited, they are fought for. Guccio's death marked the beginning of a new era. The torch was passed to his sons, Aldo, Vasco, and Rodolfo. Each one carried a different version of their father's dream, and those differences would one day divide the family that bore his name. At first, though, the brothers stood together. They had one mission: to make Gucci the most desirable luxury brand in the world. And leading that charge was the most ambitious of them all, Aldo Gucci. Aldo was a visionary. He understood that if Gucci was to transcend Florence, it needed to expand beyond Italy's borders, into the heart of modern luxury, America. And so in 1953, the same year their father died, Aldo opened the first Gucci store in New York City. It was a bold move, and it changed everything. In post-war America, luxury was becoming a language of aspiration. Celebrities, politicians, and socialites were hungry for European elegance, and Gucci offered exactly that. The romance of Italy, wrapped in the sophistication of craftsmanship. Soon, the Fifth Avenue boutique became a symbol of success. Hollywood stars like Elizabeth Taylor, Grace Kelly, and Audrey Hepburn began carrying Gucci bags. Even Jacqueline Kennedy, America's First Lady, made the brand a part of her iconic style. Her favorite Gucci shoulder bag was later renamed the Jackie bag, a moment that transformed Gucci from a luxury brand into a cultural icon. By the 1960s, the interlocking double G logo became a global status symbol. It wasn't just about owning a handbag, it was about owning a piece of identity. Gucci had mastered what few could: the fusion of heritage and modernity. Its design spoke both to the old world of craftsmanship and the new world of glamour. And under Aldo's leadership, Gucci expanded across the globe, from London to Tokyo, from Paris to Beverly Hills. But with fame came tension. Behind the gold-plated storefronts and elegant ad campaigns, the Gucci family was fracturing. Rivalries grew between the brothers, each one fighting for control of their father's empire. Vasco and Rodolfo wanted tradition, Aldo wanted domination, and in the shadows, a new generation, their sons, were watching, waiting, and preparing to make their own moves. In 1960, the company established its first factory in Scandicci, near Florence, ensuring that even as it grew, its heart remained Italian. But Aldo's relentless ambition made enemies not just outside the company, but within it. His drive for power led him to create Gucci Parfums, a separate business under his personal control, a move that would later tear the family apart. By the 1970s, Gucci had become one of the most recognized names in the world. Its signature green-red-green stripe, its horsebit loafers, its bamboo bags, all had become emblems of luxury and success. But as the empire grew, so did the ego. The family's internal wars were no longer whispers, they were headlines. Aldo, once seen as the visionary, was now accused of greed. His nephews accused him of keeping profits from the perfume line. Court cases began, trust evaporated, and the once united house of Gucci began to crumble from within. But amidst the chaos, one thing remained unshaken: the name Gucci had conquered the world. By the late 1970s, Gucci boutiques stood in every major fashion capital. The brand had become a synonym for elegance, but also a reflection of excess. The golden years of Gucci were shimmering, yet fragile. Because beneath the surface of luxury, a storm was brewing, one that would soon consume the family and threaten to destroy the empire Guccio had built with his hands. Fall of the House of Gucci, greed, betrayal, and scandal. By the dawn of the 1980s, Gucci had achieved everything its founder could have imagined: wealth, fame, and global recognition. But behind the polished storefronts and glossy magazine spreads, the family name had begun to rot from the inside. What had started as a legacy built on craftsmanship was now consumed by greed. power, and pride. The once tight-knit Gucci family had splintered into factions. Brothers and cousins battled for control, each convinced they were the true heir to the empire. And at the center of this chaos stood Aldo Gucci, the man who had brought the brand to the world stage. Now accused of tearing it apart, Aldo's success with Gucci perfumes. His perfume division made him immensely powerful, but it also made him a target. His relatives, including his nephew Maurizio Gucci, believed Aldo was hoarding profits and hiding the true value of the brand. The disagreements grew bitter, and what was once a family empire turned into a battlefield of lawyers and accountants. The brand's reputation began to suffer. The very thing that made Gucci exclusive, its aura of sophistication, was being diluted by internal greed. By the mid-1980s, Gucci's name appeared on thousands of products, from handbags to cigarette cases to cheap souvenirs. It was everywhere. And that was the problem. In an effort to expand profits, Gucci had licensed its name to almost anyone who asked. The double G logo was plastered on items that no longer reflected luxury. What was once rare had become common. The brand that once defined refinement had lost its soul. And then, in 1986, the family's darkest chapter unfolded. Aldo Gucci, the patriarch who built the empire, was charged with tax evasion in the United States. He was found guilty and sentenced to 1 year in prison at the age of 81. It was a shocking moment. The man who made Gucci a global powerhouse was now behind bars, behind the scenes. His own grandson, Maurizio Gucci, had helped expose him. The betrayal was complete. The family name, once associated with luxury and honor, was now a symbol of scandal. Maurizio, son of Rodolfo Gucci, had grown up under the weight of the dynasty. He was young, educated, and ambitious, but also naive about the ruthless world of business. When his father died in 1983, Maurizio inherited his stake in the company and set out to reclaim Gucci from the chaos. He wanted to restore the prestige his grandfather once envisioned, but his rise came with consequences. He clashed with his uncle Aldo, with his cousins, and eventually with almost everyone in the family. The internal wars continued, and by the late 1980s, Gucci was on the verge of collapse. Maurizio's leadership proved unstable. Lavish spending, poor financial decisions, and endless infighting drained the company. By 1988, desperate for survival, Maurizio made a fateful move. He sold almost 50% of Gucci to a Bahrain-based investment group called Investcorp, the same firm that owned Tiffany & Co. It was the end of an era. For the first time in its history, Gucci was no longer fully owned by the Gucci family. What followed was a corporate war unlike anything the fashion world had seen. Maurizio fought to keep control, but his vision was clouded by personal turmoil. His marriage to Patrizia Reggiani, a glamorous socialite, began to crumble. Their relationship, once filled with love and ambition, turned into bitterness and revenge. By the early 1990s, the family empire that once stood for elegance had become a public spectacle of scandal. Gucci was losing money, losing direction, and losing its identity. The dynasty that Guccio had built on craftsmanship and pride was now collapsing under the weight of its own excess. And then came the tragedy that shocked the world. In March 1995, Maurizio Gucci was assassinated outside his office in Milan. The man who bore the family name, the last Gucci to run the empire, was gone. 2 years later, police revealed a chilling truth. Maurizio's ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani, had hired a hitman to kill him. Her motive: greed, jealousy, and revenge. The world was stunned. The house of Gucci had become a real-life Shakespearean tragedy, a story of genius and downfall, love and betrayal, ambition and destruction. But even in the ashes of scandal, Gucci's name still carried power. And from those ashes, a new era was waiting to rise, not from the family, but from outsiders who would transform the brand for a new generation. The rebirth, Tom Ford, and the revival of Gucci's House of Gucci had fallen. Its founders were gone, its reputation tarnished, and its glory reduced to scandal. By the mid-1990s, the brand that once defined luxury had become a relic of its former self, out of touch, outdated, and drowning in chaos. But sometimes, In the ashes of collapse, rebirth begins when Maurizio Gucci was assassinated in 1995. Investcorp, now the primary owner, knew that the brand's survival depended on radical change. They needed fresh vision. They needed youth, creativity, and courage. And that's when a young designer from Texas stepped into the story. Tom Ford. Tom Ford had joined Gucci in 1990 as a relatively unknown designer. He was charming, confident, and unapologetically bold. At a time when Gucci was fading into obscurity, Ford saw opportunity, not just to redesign clothes, but to reinvent desire. His philosophy was simple: fashion should make people feel sexy, not just elegant or sophisticated, but magnetic. He understood that the 1990s were not about heritage anymore. They were about emotion, attitude, and allure. In 1994, when he was appointed creative director, Ford unleashed a transformation that would shock the world. His debut collection was nothing short of revolutionary. Velvet suits, plunging necklines, satin shirts, and glossy minimalism replaced the dusty heritage designs of the past. The new Gucci was sleek, seductive, and modern, a reflection of youth culture and luxury reborn. The campaign imagery was provocative, sensual, and cinematic. Gucci was no longer a family brand, it was a feeling. Fashion critics called it the resurrection of cool. Celebrities embraced it. The public adored it. And sales, once declining rapidly, exploded under Ford's creative vision and the strategic leadership of Domenico Di Sole. Gucci's turnaround became one of the greatest in fashion history. By 1999, annual sales had skyrocketed to over $3 billion. But Ford's genius wasn't just in clothes, it was in storytelling. He understood the psychology of luxury. People didn't just want products, they wanted personas. Gucci became synonymous with freedom, sex appeal, and sophistication. It became not just a brand, but a movement. And just as Gucci's revival reached new heights, the business world took notice. In 1999, the French conglomerate LVMH, led by Bernard Arnault, made an aggressive move to acquire Gucci, but Di Sole and Ford had other plans. They struck a deal with François Pinault, head of the Pinault Printemps-Verdought Group, later known as Kering. This partnership ensured Gucci's independence and set the stage for a new luxury powerhouse. With Kering's backing, Gucci expanded aggressively, not just in fashion, but in accessories, fragrance, and lifestyle. Tom Ford became a global celebrity, a designer who was as famous as the stars who wore his clothes. Under his leadership, Gucci was reborn as the ultimate symbol of modern luxury, daring, glamorous, and unapologetically confident. But like every chapter in the Gucci saga, success came with tension. Ford's growing fame and control clashed with corporate politics. By 2004, creative differences with Kering's management led to his departure, a shocking end to one of fashion's most transformative eras. The exit of Tom Ford left a void, but his impact was irreversible. He had turned Gucci from a broken name into a global powerhouse, a brand that no longer depended on family legacy, but on creative reinvention. His vision redefined the meaning of Gucci. Luxury was no longer just about heritage, it was about desire. And in the years to come, new creative minds would take that desire and shape it into something even bigger, a global culture of identity, expression, and innovation. The Gucci story was not just revived, it had been reborn. The digital empire, Gucci in the age of technology and global culture, the world had changed. Fashion was no longer confined to runways or boutiques. It lived on screens, in feeds, and across virtual worlds. The rise of the digital age brought new power, new challenges, and a new generation of luxury consumers who valued connection as much as craftsmanship. For Gucci, a brand built on legacy, reinvention had always been its secret weapon. And in the 21st century, that evolution meant embracing technology, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to expand its soul into new dimensions. After Alessandro Michele's artistic revolution, Gucci entered an era of innovation led by Marco Bizzarri and the creative minds shaping the brand's digital strategy. Their mission was clear: make Gucci the most forward-thinking luxury brand on earth. They understood that luxury was no longer about exclusivity, it was about experience. And experience in the digital world meant immersion. Gucci became one of the first luxury brands to fully embrace the digital frontier. In 2021, the company entered the metaverse, creating virtual spaces in Roblox where fans could explore Gucci's universe in 3D. The Gucci Garden experience drew millions of visitors, a blend of fashion, storytelling, and technology that blurred the line between the real and the virtual. Then came NFTs, unique digital artworks tied to the blockchain. Gucci's limited edition digital sneakers sold for thousands of dollars, symbolizing the dawn of digital luxury. For the first time, the concept of owning Gucci extended beyond fabric. It entered code, but the digital empire wasn't just about innovation, it was about values. Gucci recognized that the modern world demanded sustainability and social responsibility. The brand launched the Gucci Equilibrium Initiative, committing to carbon neutrality and responsible sourcing. It began using recycled materials, reducing emissions, and promoting circular fashion, proving that true luxury must also respect the planet. In a time when the fashion industry was under scrutiny for its environmental impact, Gucci's forward-thinking stance set a new standard. It wasn't just a fashion house anymore. It was a cultural institution, balancing heritage with responsibility. Gucci also leaned deeper into digital storytelling. Every campaign became a cinematic event, rich in symbolism, music, and art direction. The brand's collaborations extended beyond traditional fashion, from video games to digital artists, from TikTok trends to virtual influencers. It wasn't afraid to meet its audience where they were, online, connected, and curious. In doing so, Gucci became a leader in the fusion of culture and technology. Its products became extensions of personality, reflections of how people wanted to be seen, both in reality and in the digital world. But perhaps the most remarkable thing was this: even as Gucci embraced technology, it never lost its soul. Behind every virtual shoe, every digital show, every NFT, there was still the same spirit that Guccio Gucci carried in Florence a century earlier. The spirit of craftsmanship, beauty, and imagination. That balance between tradition and transformation is what made Gucci's digital era so powerful. It wasn't trying to escape its past. It was carrying its legacy into the future. By the mid-2020s, Gucci had become not just a luxury brand, but a global ecosystem where technology, fashion, art, and culture intertwined. Its influence spanned continents and generations. From Florence to Los Angeles, from Milan to the metaverse, the Double G emblem had evolved into a universal symbol of identity. The brand that once sold leather saddles now sold digital dreams. But the essence remained the same: to make people feel something rare, something real. And as Gucci stepped boldly into this new digital frontier, one truth echoed across time: innovation may change the tools, but vision is eternal. Legacy, influence, and the future of Guccio Gucci, a name that began on the cobbled streets of Florence and grew into a symbol recognized across every continent. From a small leather shop in 1921 to a multi-billion-dollar global empire, Gucci's story is one of reinvention, of transforming obstacles into opportunity, and legacy into modern legend. Today, over a century later, the brand stands as more than fashion. It is a language of expression, a bridge between generations, and a living testament to what happens when creativity never stands still. The legacy of Gucci begins and continues with vision. Guccio Gucci saw something others couldn't: the idea that craftsmanship could carry emotion, and that luxury was not about price, but about meaning. His sons, Aldo, Rodolfo, and Vasco, took that dream beyond Florence, turning it into a global brand. They introduced the world to the horsebit, the bamboo handle, the green-red-green stripe icons that would outlive trends and decades. Then came the storm: family feuds, scandals, and near financial collapse. But from those ashes rose a new Gucci, reborn through Tom Ford's sensuality, Frida Giannini's elegance, and Alessandro Michele's imagination. Each era added a new chapter, a new tone, a new definition of what Gucci could be. It became more than a fashion house. It became a mirror reflecting culture, art, and society back to itself. Gucci's influence on culture cannot be measured only in sales or shows. It lives in music, film, and art. It's in the lyrics of rappers, in the frames of cinema, in the confidence of those who wear it. Gucci became a symbol of individuality. For some, it meant wealth. For others, rebellion. But for all, it represented identity, a declaration of self. That is what separates Gucci from its rivals. It adapts, not just to the world, but to the human spirit. Under Marco Bizzarri's leadership and the creative vision of Alessandro Michele, Gucci found a balance between the past and the future. It honored heritage while embracing the bold, the diverse, and the unconventional. It broke gender barriers, embraced fluidity, and celebrated difference as a form of beauty. And in the process, Gucci became a cultural voice. A reminder that luxury, at its best, is not about status. It's about storytelling. As Gucci enters the mid-21st century, its influence continues to expand across technology, sustainability, and social consciousness. Its commitment to Gucci equilibrium marks a promise to protect the planet, to honor artisans, and to keep innovation rooted in respect. Its digital ventures, from the metaverse to AI-powered design, are not gimmicks. They are explorations of how emotion can live in code, and how creativity can evolve beyond fabric. In this age of speed and simulation, Gucci remains deeply human because it has never forgotten why it exists: to make people feel, and that is the real empire. Not one built on stores or shareholders, but one built on emotion, artistry, and imagination. A century after Guccio Gucci crafted his first leather bag, his initials, those two interlocking G's, still tell a story of dreams stitched by hand, of ambition passed through generations, and of a legacy that continues to redefine what it means to be timeless. So, when you see that emblem, gold against fabric, light against shadow, remember what it represents: a name that defied time, a brand that became art, and a vision that turned luxury into legend. Gucci, forever evolving, forever iconic, forever Gucci. The modern renaissance. Alessandro Michele and the new Gucci era. After the departure of Tom Ford in 2004, Gucci stood at a crossroads once again. The brand was thriving financially, but creatively it was uncertain. How could anyone follow the man who had turned Gucci into a symbol of glamour, sexuality, and power? For the next decade, Gucci continued to grow under different creative directions, refined, elegant, but missing the spark that defined its earlier revolutions. The world of fashion was changing, and Gucci needed more than luxury. It needed a soul. Then, in 2015, a quiet, introverted designer named Alessandro Michele stepped into the spotlight. Almost no one outside the fashion world knew his name. But within months, he would transform Gucci once again, not through provocation, but through poetry. Where Tom Ford's Gucci was sleek and sensual, Michele's vision was romantic, eccentric, and deeply human. He drew inspiration from art, history, gender fluidity, and the chaos of culture. His Gucci was not about status, it was about self-expression. His first collection stunned the fashion world. Gone were the glossy silhouettes and minimalism of the 2000s. In their place came vintage fabrics, bold patterns, embroidered flowers, ruffled shirts, oversized glasses, and jeweled loafers. It was maximalist, emotional, and unapologetically different. Critics called it a cultural reset. Gucci was no longer a brand for the elite. It became a voice for the dreamers, the outsiders, the artists. Under Michele, Gucci embraced imperfection, diversity, and identity in ways fashion had rarely seen before, and it worked almost overnight. Gucci became the most talked about fashion house in the world. Celebrities, musicians, and influencers gravitated toward its new energy. Harry Styles, Jared Leto, Dakota Johnson, and Lana Del Rey became ambassadors of this new aesthetic and icons of its emotional universe. Social media amplified Gucci's renaissance. Every collection was a statement, every campaign a cinematic world of its own. The double G logo, once a mark of status, became a symbol of freedom and creativity. But Michele's genius wasn't just in design, it was in storytelling. He understood that in the 21st century, fashion was not about fabric, it was about feeling. Every runway show carried symbolism, from ancient mythology to queer identity, from Renaissance art to futuristic rebellion. The results were extraordinary. Between 2015 and 2019, Gucci's revenue tripled, making it the crown jewel of Kering Group. Stores were redesigned into immersive art spaces, filled with color, texture, and imagination. Gucci had become more than a fashion label. It had become a cultural phenomenon. But as with every great renaissance, evolution is inevitable. By the early 2020s, trends shifted again. The minimalist wave returned, and the fashion world began craving simplicity. After 8 transformative years, Alessandro Michele stepped down in 2022, leaving behind a legacy that reshaped not only Gucci, but the language of modern fashion. He had proven that a brand built on heritage could still lead the world through emotion, inclusivity, and art. Under Michele, Gucci didn't just sell clothes, it sold identity. It reminded the world that luxury wasn't about belonging to a class, but about believing in yourself. From Guccio Gucci's handcrafted saddles in Florence to Michele's embroidered dreamscapes on global runways, the brand had come full circle, redefining luxury for every new generation. And as the curtains closed on Michele's era, the stage was set for the next transformation, the future of Gucci in an age defined by technology, sustainability, and global consciousness.